Welcome to the Brokers Open Podcast.
This week, getting started being a real estate broker, how prospecting is different for everyone, high times and low times in real estate and how it shapes us. Why do we do what we do? On this week of Brokers Open Podcast, we dig into Justin and Matt's checkered real estate past to figure out how Real Estate Brokers Open got started.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Palm Media. Palm Media is a boutique digital marketing company built for realtors by realtors. They help agents and teams dominate a target market with specific tailored strategies. Everything from video, chatbots, landing pages, Facebook ads, database management, and coaching. And oh my gosh, it's way more affordable and simple than you can ever imagine. Call now for a 100% free strategy session, whether you have a budget or not. Dr. Ben, my good friend, will make sure that you are heading in the right direction and building your presence online or flat out crushing your competition. Before you spend a dime on marketing, door knocking, or sending out postcards, call Palm Media. 813-765-7706. I repeat, 813-765-7706. Or click the link on the description below and manifest your paradise.
Yeah.
Weren't we just in Paris last week on Brokers Open Podcast?
We were, and I'm excited to be back. And Matt and I were just talking about before we went live here, with the time change and everything, and with being set back, it took us a long time. It took us a couple days to get back to normal.
Healing. We needed healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was we got time stolen from us, it seemed like, right? We stayed up later than we normally do. All of that, but it was at a high cost, but a great reward.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. It was a very good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot that we were able to accomplish in just a few days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I enjoyed it.
So today we're gonna talk a little bit about we've had some good guests. We got more good guests coming on. We're going to touch on some of those. Today. But we've had some really good guests come on and everything. And some of the comments that we keep getting about the podcast are, the guests are great and everything, but some of the people that I know don't know you, and some of the people you know don't know me. And,
right.
And we've got a little bit of a background of why we want to do a Brokers Open podcast, right? Because this isn't about just an open house.
Yeah.
This is actually about brokers openly talking, right?
Right.
So yeah, we wanted to take a little bit of time today. Hopefully everybody will find this enjoyable. We'll try to roll some of the stuff into it that we know is going to be beneficial and helpful to people, but also kind of get to know the audience a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole goal. Is we obviously started the podcast off with 3 straight interviews.
Yep.
Of 3 great people, but at the same time, they're probably like, well, who are the 2 hosts?
Right.
So it'll be nice for you guys to get to know us a little bit better. I think that Matt and I have some really interesting real estate backgrounds that we can, lead your way.
Right, and some of it's the same, and some of it's diverse. But how we got to the decision of where we are right now is the important part. And quite honestly, we're not brokers by accident. Both of us want to be in the position and the situation that we're in. So many times brokers end up that way by accident or because, the desire to keep 100% of their commission or whatever it is.
Right.
And so that's not how we ended up where we are. And I think it's important that coming from a place of trying to help people, I think it's important that we kind of display that. So I'm glad we agreed to do this.
Totally.
Yeah. So we've been getting a lot of comments, right? A lot of people talking about the podcast, a lot of good stuff.
It's been fun. We're gonna have to make some memorabilia here soon, some hats and some T-shirts to give to our friends.
Absolutely. So of course we got to start out just like always, Palm Media always doing the right thing for us, helping us out, getting us on track, making sure that everything's ready to go for us. You still singing that song, aren't you? It's
they're here. I know, but I thought of Palm Media and I thought of hip, young, and cool, and they're somewhere in here.
Yeah,
but
they are.
We're in the studio,
right? Helping us keep things moving. So that's good stuff. So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
So we've had 3 good guests, and we've got probably 8 of them or 9 of them lined up that we just have to coordinate schedule with, right?
Yeah.
So in doing that, part of what we want to do whenever we're talking to the guest is bring some of our own experience into the conversations that they're having.
Right.
So that way it helps other people see kind of a couple of different perspectives by spending the time just once listening to the podcast. So why a broker? How come you decided to become a broker? Because you tell us a little bit about starting in real estate and then getting to the point where you are right now. Tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll throw some questions at you.
All right. So long story short, I got into real estate kind of by fluke, and so I was working for a financial firm down in Naples when I was finishing my master's, and I was getting my master's in finance. I always thought I wanted to be a wealth advisor.
Right.
Great career path, all that good stuff. And I had been working with this company for some time now, and I just realized sitting there that it just wasn't me. It's not something that I really enjoyed, and quite honestly, I'm a big believer in trusting your gut, and that's something that has never steered me wrong. The analytical types might look at me and go, "You're crazy," but I quite literally put my 2 weeks in at a really good job, and not really necessarily a good job at that point in my career, but what could have been a really good job. Yeah. And
a great direction.
Yeah, and I enrolled in a real estate school in downtown Fort Myers. I went up there with a buddy of mine, and I got my real estate license. And then after I got my real estate license, I went and shopped myself around to like 5 different brokerages in Naples and in Bonita Springs. And I landed amongst a team that took me in with arms wide open. I was super green in the business, but they saw my potential, and shout out to Michael Burke. I mean, the guy is a legend. He fast forwarded my career by 10 years. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So I worked for Michael Burke and his team for about a year and a half. I mean, that's a high producing team. We were doing $40 million a year plus then, and I know that he's pushing that envelope now, and he just kills it. He's just got a awesome recipe for success. But at the same time, when he hired me, he knew I wanted to always move back to the Tampa Bay area where I'm from, because I just love the area so much. So long story short, moved back here, met some guys actually, and we ended up working together at a local brokerage.
Right.
We started talking and started going, well, why don't we open our own brokerage? And I was like, oh, well, this is something I've always thought about.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I'm eligible to get, this is crazy, I'm eligible to get my broker's license in like a month. This is great. So I am sitting for my broker's test on the exact day that I was eligible.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked about barriers to entry a lot in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little crazy that I was able to do that so quickly, but that kind of fits into who I am as a person, because I'd rather jump in head first and then learn how to swim.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So we, myself and a couple guys, started a brokerage back in October of 2013, I believe, and grew that company. Really, really enjoyed that boutique side of it. I got an opportunity to see 2 sides of a business where it was ownership and brokerage, and then at the same time focus kind of on the luxury end of things. So really, really enjoyed that path, and I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
And I met Dewey and Allen, our owners.
Right.
They kind of tapped us on our shoulder that they were interested in acquiring our company, and
we're going to get them on here, right? It's going to have to be, for those of you guys who don't know Dewey and Allen, which everybody does know Dewey and Allen, but for those of y'all that don't know them, we're going to have to get them on here separately.
Yeah.
We can't have them both on here together.
That'd be a mess.
It would. It's such a great time, but absolutely a mess. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And 2 Alabama football players, and so I don't know that there'd be room for all of us to start with.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I mean, they're just the personalities and what they bring to the table is just. It's just so incredible, and they're sincere guys, and so, one of them being able to talk and have a complete conversation,
awesome.
The other one, we want to do that. So,
well, that's what I liked most about it. So when I first sat down with them when they were talking about acquiring my company, I felt like an immediate sense of family.
Right.
And you don't get that in real estate too much.
No.
Real estate is very dog eat dog, and
very competitive.
I was used to a world of really, really fighting for what I have.
Right.
And that still has never changed in me, but I was very prideful in my brand, and I was very protective of my brand.
Right.
And,
reputation and everything. That's why it was a good fit. That's why you felt at home.
Yeah. And so long story short, it happened. I came on board with Berkshire, and why I'm in a broker role, I love selling. Don't get me wrong. I think selling is incredible.
Yep.
In particular, I love the luxury market. That's something that I've always been passionate about.
And you do really well in.
And I'll continue to be passionate about it. I think it's a great place, and it's something that, I have an opportunity to shed that light on my agents as well, which is great. But I really, really like the brokerage role. I mean, today's a really good example. We held a roundtable meeting this morning where I had about 12 of my agents in-house, and we were just spitballing real estate. And it really lights me up to know, that I can help somebody's career path. I mean, at the end of the day, when I was just selling and when I had my own company, I would go home and I would feel a sense of accomplishment in the sense that I was going somewhere and I was being quote unquote successful and I was making a lot of money. But I felt like this sense of not necessarily emptiness, but I felt like there was something more that I needed to do.
Yep, I understand that.
And it wasn't until Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Florida Properties Group just hit me in the face where, all of a sudden I started going home and talking to my wife about my day and different things. And I'm like, I had a direct hand in impacting putting food on somebody's table.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never felt that before. I had never been in a management role before. I had never been in a leadership role before. And it really, it shook me to my core in a very, very good way, to the point where that literally drives me.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. I know exactly where you're coming from.
So that, in a nutshell, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I mean, like I said, I love selling. Don't get me wrong. But being able to be a part of somebody else's success story, or even be there for one of your agents when they're not having a good day or something terrible happens in their lives, I enjoy that.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to see somebody, whether they're an experienced agent or whether they're a new agent, to see them going through some adversity, to see them going through a difficult time, and know that they have somebody that they can bounce something off of.
Yeah.
And even if they don't take the answer the exact way that we discussed and everything, but they take it and they grow with that answer, you know that they just got better at that, and that impacts the customer.
It's awesome.
It shapes how they are moving forward with their business, and that's one less hurdle, that's one less obstacle that somebody in the public has to trip over.
Right.
Because we help that person get past that point. It's
so cool because we've been through there. We've had the trials and tribulations. We continue to do so on a daily basis. I mean, we learn every day, but it's funny to see an agent ask me a question or worry about a problem, and they're asking me as if like I've never been there before, but I probably know the answer.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I've screwed that up 20 times, and you're asking me for the first time.
You know how many hot water heaters and refrigerators and home warranties I purchased? If it wasn't for me, Aeon and Old Republic and all of them would be out of business.
Yeah.
When I was getting started, man, there was just so many things that got messed up. I didn't have there was a broker, but he was kind of absentee in the situation.
Yep.
And so that made it difficult whenever you needed answers. So I kind of vowed to not be that way.
Yeah, so. And that's what it's all about, and that's why I like Berkshire Hathaway so much, is because the role of a broker in certain brokerages changes drastically.
Absolutely.
And Matt and I's role is very specific, very distinct, and very leadership oriented. And like I said, everything happens for a reason, because I can tell you that if I had that opportunity at another company and it didn't have this same type of role, I wouldn't be happy, man.
Yeah, no, I hear where you're coming from. And we've got the other thing is, we got a bunch of other great managers that have a ton of experience. So we were just at convention, right? And one of the companies we mentioned this in the previous podcast. One of the companies did 33,000 transactions, right?
Insane.
Well, Tom managed there.
Yeah.
Right, and Shauna lived in Vegas. These are managers that we deal with, and so she lived there and has a whole bunch of leasing and management experience. Guy was on a team like you were. Trevor knows Lakeland and has been on the Florida Association of Realtors forever. Casey was with Reese Nichols.
Otis was a top producer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we've got all these people around us all the time that are just absolutely fantastic. Cindy was with Sotheby's, and
it's insane.
Yeah. So we've got all of these very experienced people. So if we ever get tripped up on something, just like the agent says, "Hey, broker, can I help out with this?" We get tripped up or we see something come across or some ridiculous email or whatever, we blast it out to everybody and say, "Hey, where are you at with this?"
Right.
Because they're servant mindset leaders. Mm-hmm. How many answers do we get back with that? 5, 6, 7 answers?
A million of them.
Yeah.
And instantly.
And so we're never alone, so the agent's never alone, so again, the customer's never alone. So that makes all the difference in the world. We're not, I tell people this all the time, we're not selling independence.
Right.
We're selling support.
Right.
And some people want independence. That's fabulous. Some people want support. The people that want support have to be in an environment, top-down culture-wise, that looks at it like that.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's what I like a lot about it. Like when we have our manager meetings or when all the brokers get together from all of our offices, is that we come together. We all compete in a certain sense because we always want to be the top dog. That's just who we are inside. But, shout out to our managers, because That is a insanely talented group of people.
is.
And we all have such diverse, different backgrounds. I was so worried going into there. And I'm like, well, I'm looking around going, not only am I the youngest, but they're probably looking at me like, what the hell does this kid know,
Yeah.
right? And, everyone took me in with open arms. This is over 2 years ago now.
Right.
That sounds crazy.
I know, right? Flies by.
But it shows the culture bit there. I mean, we're all one big team. And
But everybody knew then, just like you know now, that you wouldn't be in that fold if you didn't deserve to be in that fold.
Yeah.
This isn't just as you know, we don't just open the doors to everybody with that, right? And so that makes a big difference. But this is starting to sound like a commercial.
Yeah, I know.
Let's don't do that.
We'll back off.
Yep,
Managers, and by the way, we're going to be having plenty of brokers open
Yes.
where the managers are going to come in
Absolutely.
and be our guests because they have so much to share. I mean, like you said, there's so many cool different stories, whether it's Tom
Absolutely.
at Fox and Roach, yada, yada. We can go on forever
Right.
about that. So
Yeah.
we're going to have them on as guests later. Matt, I want to know your background. Why you got into real estate? Answer that broker role. I know the answer.
Terrible story here. So I thought in the $1 Million Club in the newspaper, I thought that all those people made $1 million. So I was like, you know what, I want a piece of that.
Yep.
So there's all kidding aside. I mean, I at that point I worked two jobs, 2 full-time jobs, and so I taught school and I taught karate. Karate
Right.
was from 3:30, 4 o'clock at night till 11 o'clock at night. School was from 7:30 in the morning till 2 o'clock, 2:30, something like that, and. I had a family that, we were planning on having a family at that point and everything, and I'd always liked real estate. And so from 11 at night till 2 in the morning, so there's a computer, right? And so I had a stack of floppy disks about this big because I didn't want to go sit in the classroom because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
So I had to put the floppy disk, 3 1/4 inch floppy disk into
This
the
isn't
computer.
dating.
And hope it's saved and all that kind of stuff. And so, take the test and get done with all that and everything. And went and saw a brokerage. And, I started, we can go back and rewind this and look at it. But, you said to the day of when you could be a broker, you were sitting there, right? So in Georgia, it was 3 years. And so before the 3-year point, the broker owner of the office, decided, he was gonna sell and everything, and he tried to put an ownership group together, and I was like, I'm not interested in an ownership group. I'd love to buy it. So he kind of tried to put that together, and it didn't really happen. So about 2.5 years in, comes to me and says, hey, are you willing to buy this? And so before I could even be a broker, he had to be the broker for like 6 months. He had to stay on and hold his license just so that I could operate the brokerage because I didn't even have a broker's license
That's
yet.
awesome.
And oh my God, did I screw up the first 6 months to a year? So the reason why I laughed was you said, right at the day that I was able to get the broker's license. Now I don't know that we could ever prepare to be ready to be a broker.
No.
But I wasn't ready to be a broker. I was absolutely able to be a broker, and I had all the reasons why I should be a broker. But I was so ill prepared to be a broker.
See, the difference between my story and yours is that I failed behind the scenes with my business partners, and they're like, shake it off. You failed in front of a bunch of agents.
Everybody. Yeah,
Which I am not envious of.
So we went from a small brokerage to a pretty to a respectable one, and then I got bought out and went to work for a Caldwell banker, a family-owned Caldwell banker that was the kind of the biggest one.
Where is this at right now?
South Georgia. So St. Simons, Brunswick, all the way up to the regional broker that I worked for was based out of Savannah. They wanted to be in our marketplace.
Yep.
So I ended up being a regional person there for them and did everything under the sun there, from mergers and acquisitions to, of course, recruiting, day-to-day finance stuff, all of that. So, of course, 07 hits, shakes all of that up. And it was a family-owned business, and I'm still good friends with several of the family, and some of the family I'm not great friends with.
Yeah.
And but there's one thing: whenever the market shifts in real estate and a family-owned business, there's one thing that you'll understand very quickly is whether you're family or not.
Yeah.
And I don't thank God that happened. Everything happens for a reason. If that wouldn't have happened, then I might still be there.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather be where I'm at right now.
Right.
I love the growth and the forward thinking and the opportunity that we have right now.
Everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. And so, one of the things you kind of touched on this before, whenever you're an agent, even whenever I was a broker and kind of owned my own business, the service that I gave was really to the customer.
Yeah.
Now the service that I give is to the agent.
Yeah.
And so there's a big difference whenever you're helping by proxy like that.
Right.
Because now, instead of me just helping the customer and that one customer, 20 customers or 30 customers that year being impacted or whatever the deal is, or 50 or whatever, now 1,000 transactions a year, I'm able to help exponentially from an efficiency standpoint. I'm able to help a lot of people with a lot of things because I can impact what the agents are doing. So, we'll touch on education and training and all that kind of stuff and everything, but that allows me to look at my service on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah.
I like being able to have as much impact as I can.
Yeah.
And you can't do that without leveraging tools and systems and stuff. And I don't want to get back into the commercial part of this, but that's part of the reason why we do what we do, where we do it, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so I enjoy the part of the story on how you actually landed with the group, because really this was kind of a little coincidence a little bit.
It was. So I talked to Dewey, 6 months before, or 8 months before, and had a conversation with him. At that point, I was selling strategic alliances for a mortgage partnership for a year. I just had to get out of the real estate side of it, and it was just
right.
Took a pay cut from really good money to 30% of really good money on the promise that other money would come in, but I just had to get out of that.
Yeah.
And so I worked for them for about a year, and I'd called Dewey and a bunch of other people. I had half of the U.S. that I dealt with, and Dewey. I talked to him, and I out of a bunch of owners that I talked to, and we did a lot of business with a lot of people. Every time I talked to Dewey, I could tell he was busy. I could tell he had something else to do, but he always had a sincere conversation with me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case with a lot of other people that I dealt with.
Right.
And so, in our conversations, I mentioned, I had a little bit of history in real estate because, that was part of the sales process for me and everything, helping them understand what I was doing. And I get a phone call, a month and a half later, something like that, and it was Ginger. And she and I talked on the phone the first time for...
She's great.
She is. She's fabulous. Talk about a knowledgeable industry person, man. Just...
Ginger McQuigg.
Oh, yeah.
The
holler
bomb.
out to her, man.
Yeah.
And so, I talk to her, have a great conversation with her, and then it kind of drops off for about 5 or 6 months. Don't really hear anything. At that point, I didn't realize that they were putting things in place. They were shifting some responsibilities and stuff, and she was, she was moving up and everything. And so I'm on my way to Sarasota. So I got another job with another real estate company. They wanted me to run and do some expanding with them, and I'm like 30 minutes maybe from the exit on 75 to head towards Tampa, like 275 or whatever it is. And we're putting a deposit because our kids got to get in school. So we're putting a deposit on a place that we've been looking at in Sarasota.
Crazy.
And Ginger calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, can you come by and see me?" And I said, "Ginger, and I loved her to death. She's just awesome."
You're like, this is not the best timing.
Right, that's right. I was like, "Yeah, I really can't. I'm in shorts and a T-shirt, and my family's with me and all that." And she's like, "Oh, no, come on in." And so we come in, and if anybody out there knows Ginger McQuigg, okay? So
we'll get her to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. I roll, and she can comment on this.
Yeah.
So I roll up in shorts and a T-shirt for a job interview, basically. That is not. Let me look right in the camera. That is not how Ginger McQuigg rolls.
If you don't know Ginger out there, and I don't mean this in the personality profile, Ginger looks like the lead boss in The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Yes,
that's kind of embarrassing. I know that movie, Meryl Streep. But
yeah.
she's just got it together, super professional. Anyway, go ahead.
And has done real estate for a very long time.
She
and
killed
has
it.
Played at an extremely high level the whole time. So,
with the copes and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So so she calls. I go in there. The two administrative people are still with me. One of the two of them are still with me. And I walk in, and she says to herself, which later she confides to me. She said, walked in shorts and a T-shirt. There's no way this guy's going to last. 7 years ago. And so I talked to Ginger, and she just kind of wanted to confirm that who I was on the phone is who showed up and everything. And like 3 days later, I've got the contract and have been there ever since. She's introducing me. She actually said, "Well, I've got a party next Wednesday. How about if you come into the party and I'll introduce you then?" And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on now, let's."
Yeah.
And that's just how Ginger is though.
Sweet.
Once she's done, she's on the move, and it's been all uphill but incredible the whole way.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. I love the work. We love what we do, right? So,
yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, that was something I was going to bring up too, or that we were going to bring up is the difference between a solo shop, like a mom and pop shop that we both owned,
and operated, and the difference between a corporate thing. And I never really truly understood the difference, even though I was a part of a big brokerage before I started my own company, and now I'm part of Berkshire. It never occurred to me, especially on the broker level, really the difference.
Yep.
And I say this because everything happens for a reason, and I think your path is supposed to go the way it's supposed to go. You're supposed to roll with the punches, but also push that envelope. But
Right.
I didn't know what I was missing for all those years.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I was so wrapped up in creating a brand and having my own thing that I had horse blinders on, which was great, and that helped my path to
Right.
success. But I also missed everything out here. And it was really, really awakening when I came over and saw. I was like, oh my God, this is an operation.
Yeah.
You know, so pitch aside. You know, that really struck me.
Yeah, and there's scale to it. There's scale built into it, and so many people think that if I want to build certain things, that I only have to build it within a certain framework.
Right.
That's the beauty of real estate. I mean, you
Yeah.
can have a framework inside a framework, and so I tell people this all the time. Every now and again, I'll have an agent that comes in and says, should I get my broker's license? And I'm like, well, what do you plan? What do you want to do with it and everything? And so I talk to some people just like you do, out of state. We've got friends and everything, and so there's been friends that have opened companies and all that kind of stuff. And I always try to have kind of the same conversation with them about it being like a website. So, what kind of depth do you want on your website?
Right.
Do you want just the picture on the front that
Right.
everybody likes and you're hoping they click on it and they hope that they do business with it? Or do you want a picture that you can click and it can take you to a whole nother rabbit hole of a whole bunch of other things that you can do? Or you go to the navigation tab and you can go somewhere else. There's just a bigger framework to it.
It's cool.
And some people just want that landing page
Yeah.
so that they click on it. When they click on it, they get the information. And that's great. That's the beauty of this business.
Yeah.
With a company like this that's structured the way it is, you can have a landing page that goes to a website.
Yeah.
That really is the difference in everything. So, but anyway, all right. So again, it's starting to sound like a commercial. Let's stay away from that.
Yep.
So all right. So let's talk about favorite books for just a second.
Well, what's my
and
favorite
education in general. I mean, so
Yeah.
we both look at education the same way.
Yeah.
We think it's a must. You never stop. We love the fact that agents come to us with problems because that helps us educate them. I mean,
Yeah.
you call the legal helpline all the time. I call the legal helpline all the time. We're constantly calling friends and emailing brokers because it helps expand our knowledge.
Yeah.
Because, when things are going right, agents don't talk to us. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Unless they're
Right.
in the coaching session with it. When things aren't going wrong, that's when we get 96 texts, 4 phone calls, and 3 emails in 10 minutes, right?
Right. Yep. So, yeah, education's a big thing. I mean, I'm always trying to learn every day. So I'm either reading a book, listening to an audio book, or listening to a podcast
Right.
on a daily basis. Favorite book. So I have a couple different favorite books. I would say, as of right now, my favorite book is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's a book on leadership, written by 2 retired Navy SEALs. Fantastic book, no matter where you are at in your career. I recommend the read. They have a second book out right now called Dichotomy of Leadership. Good book, very similar to the first one. I'd recommend read the first one and then maybe
Yeah.
move on to the second. But I would say that the most pivotal book in my life is a book called It's Your Ship. It's Your Ship. It was written by a captain. I have it written down here, Captain Abrashoff from the Navy. And from a mentor when I was a young man, I was 21 at this point, and I was president of my fraternity.
Right. The one that you
And-
started, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And this particular mentor of mine was, I believe, in his late 30s, super successful businessman. Said, listen, he's like, I know that you're a natural born leader. He said, but you're young.
Right.
And there's a lot that you have to learn.
Right.
And back then I was like, what's
no,
this
I
guy
got this.
talking about? Like I'm a tough guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I want you to read this book. So he gave me his copy of It's Your Ship, and whew, I'm telling you, it absolutely shifted my path in life.
Yeah.
To not only become a better leader at that time, but for me to understand leadership and management and personal growth on a totally different level.
Yeah.
I mean, I took it really personal because this guy who I looked up to really wanted me to read it.
Mm-hmm.
And
It really paid off. So as of right now, the most impactful book in my life is It's Your Ship. I recommend it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll put that link to those books
Cool.
in the description and everything, and that way some folks, if they want to grab onto that, they can.
What about you? Your favorite books?
So yeah, the same thing. There's a lot of really impactful books. I think I have to categorize. I was talking to a friend from high school the other day. You know, so everything happens for a reason, right? How many times are we going to say that? So the other day I was in some affirmations, and one of them was to just expand the group of people that I talk to that are beyond the day-to-day of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours later, pops up on Facebook. This guy I haven't talked to in 30 years, since high school.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know, I said, hey, look, I'm in Vegas. You know, I'm gonna, you know, I'll catch up with you and everything. And so, you know, we talk on Monday or Tuesday or whatever day this is. So we talked a couple of days ago, and he made a great point about reading. So he actually said, you know, we're talking for just a couple minutes, and he goes, hey, have you ever heard of Anthony Robbins? And I laughed and I said, oh yeah, I've heard of him. I said, so tell me. I said, did you recently go to a seminar? He goes, no, I've been reading his stuff for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I said, that's absolutely fantastic. And I said, so what's your favorite book? And he brought up a great point. He said, you know, I almost have to break it into the areas of my life that I focus on growth-wise.
Really?
And I'm like, oh, that's a great answer, right? And so, you know, he said, you know, from personal development and everything, you know, he goes through his books and everything, and he asked me what mine was. And I think from just a being a person book. So take spirituality aside, right?
Yeah.
So just being a person book. I think Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I absolutely love the book, and you know from Good to Great is a great book. The Greatest Salesman is a great book. I mean, there's just so many great books that have to do with business. Ninja Selling.
The Four Agreements.
Oh yeah,
I love the Four Agreements.
Just 5-star with, you know, Carmine Gallo that we just talked about. I mean, there's so many great books out there, but the one that was eye-opening, the one that kind of said, hey, look, there's a bigger world and it's connected with all the pieces because it's connected to you, was Think and Grow Rich for me.
Cool.
And because it's not really about thinking and growing rich. I mean, that's not what the book is about. And
right.
Whenever it says rich, it has nothing to do with wealth. It has to do with, you know, education and life and all of that. So we'll put a link in there so that everybody can, so everybody can look at that. So when did you go, holy shit, real estate's for me? When was that aha moment for you that you were just like, oh my God, really?
That took some time. When I first got into real estate, I'm thinking for the first several months, I made a huge mistake.
Really?
Yeah. Because, I mean, granted, I've always had the support of my family, and they've always been super generous with helping me when I was, you know, in college and stuff like that. But I didn't have any money, and I spent like every last dollar on making sure that I got my real estate license and you know, was certified by the board and all that. And that's a couple $1,000s later, and you know, I basically put my bet all in.
Right.
And it took me over 6 months to get my first sale.
Wow.
And you know, that impacted me because it hit my ego a little bit, and it taught me to use my ego for good.
Right.
And to
put it in check when it needed it.
And to check the BS.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I needed that, and I think that we all need that at some point in our life. Is a gut check. And I was down. I was a little bit, you know, upset with myself. I felt like I failed. Like I said, it was probably nearing on 7 months that I hadn't even sniffed anything. Yeah. And you know, I finally pushed through, and I started getting a couple big sales. And I remember one of them, it was like my second contract ever. Right. You know, I nailed a short sale for $525,000. I remember it. It was in Grandeza in Estero. But really, the long story short of it was, you're tested at certain points in your life, whether you want to accept it or not. And you got to take it as a learning lesson. You got to step back and understand why that's happening to you and how you're going to get yourself out of it.
Absolutely.
And I think before that, and before like my leadership path, I always took a road of, why me?
And when those situations would hit me, because that was the easiest thing to say.
Right.
It was my way out. I'll blame
yeah.
somebody else. Why me?
It's a perfect excuse.
But what a maturity shift, and what a
Yep.
enlightening deal that has happened in my life when those things hit you. And
Isn't it incredible?
I'm so grateful for trying times, because it really, on a core level, makes you who you are.
Yep.
So, I think at that point when I started proving to myself, I started getting my first couple sales, and I think then after that, so I was with that team for about a year and a half. After that, I had pinged almost 20 sales after that, and I came up here with a little over $4.5 million in volume as my first year in real estate.
Right.
If you want to count the first 7 months, whatever.
Right. The goose egg months, we'll call them.
But I think it was probably like my second deal in. I was like, this is
What was your
for
best
me.
year?
My best year was $37 million.
What made that your best year? How'd you get to that point? What did you do to?
My business partner and I, shout out to Scotty. Scotty and I had a really good year. What we did is Scott and I are pretty good at networking on a relationship basis.
Right, very good at it. Yeah.
And we really, really worked hard. And this is 2015. So we're 2 years into our new company.
Right.
We just busted our butts.
Yeah,
And what was interesting is we've always been in that little bit upper end of real estate, so that's always been nice. But that year, our average price point when we ended up finishing the year was just under $1 million.
Wow, that's solid.
So it was insane.
Solid.
But a lot of what happened in that was asking the right questions scenario-wise. So what would normally have been one deal, because we situationally asked our client the right questions and made sure that we provided the right service, those one deals became 3 deals.
Right.
And there was one deal in particular that really stuck out to me that year, where we were, I was selling my buyer's, my buyer's house. So we're selling their house.
Right.
Scott was selling another person's house. So Scott put these people into this house over here. These people, where they were moving from, I was putting my people in over here. So we had 4 transactions in one deal.
Wow.
One deal.
Talking about holding your breath and making sure everything goes right.
When we were done with that deal, and the clients that are involved in that know who they are, they still come up to this same day, and they're like, we don't know how you guys pulled that off.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was 4 transactions in one, but that popped. I mean, that was 1, 2, 3. I think it ended up being like $8 million in volume right there.
Yeah, that's
and
fantastic.
then we sold the penthouse at the Sand Pearl that same year. That was $4.9 million.
Right.
There was just a lot of really interesting things that happened the right way, but it was because of hard work.
Right.
And
relationship-based sales.
Yeah.
Hard work, doing the right thing, knowledgeable. So you hit on something that's really huge, and I know we both talk about this a lot whenever we're dealing with our people. The pre-qualifying people. Mm-hmm. So we discuss having an in-depth conversation with people. And I think pre-qualifying is a great example of how people aren't ready to hear something until it's time for them to hear it.
Right.
And so, we'll in BHU, whenever we start out and when we have our initial conversations and they start their coaching and all of those things, we say, you don't want to crank your car up until you know who's getting in the car. Don't take the listing until you're sure that it's the right thing for everybody. So pre-qualifying people, until somebody gets burnt with that.
Yeah.
They don't really understand what it is to pre-qualify. And I got to go into a quick story about this, okay? Because Sean, you know Sean, right? We think the world of
He's the bomb,
right?
yeah.
And so Sean was he's an engineer, wanted to get out of engineering, wanted to get into real estate, right? So he's working engineering during the day. This was whenever there was a lot of foreclosures going on. So he's working nights and weekends to try to build up his business so that he can step away from engineering. Young guy, married, looking towards a family, has to be responsible about what he's doing, put all that time, effort, and energy into being a licensed engineer. So you get it.
Yeah.
So he comes into me one Monday, because we had to meet at Monday evenings at like 5:30 because he's working every other time and so he comes in and he just looked stir fried. I mean, you could tell he'd been working and everything, and working all day and all night and all that. And I said, so tell me about your pre-qualified buyers. And we talked about this a decent amount. And so he starts going through it, and I said, no, I mean the people that are truly pre-qualified, ready to buy. And I could tell whenever I said that he didn't
understand.
Yeah. And we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, this is what I want you to do. I said, I don't want you to call anybody back. I don't want you to anything. Everybody that you have that you can answer these questions, and you have a certain amount of assurity that you think that it's the truth. All the people that are 60% or more of this form filled out compared to the people that are less than 60% of the form, I want you to divide them into two categories.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we'll meet on Thursday. He comes in on Thursday. He's got a stack about this big and a stack about this big. The stack that's about this big are the ones that he can rely on the answers that are truly pre-qualified. The stack that's this big, I said, so which of those two stacks
Are you spending your time?
That's right. And you better believe it was that big fat stack.
Yeah.
And so whenever I talk to people about pre-qualifying, I'll say it over and over and over and over, but I know they don't get it until they're in that situation.
Right.
And so good for you guys for seeing that and having those questions, because there wouldn't have been 8 million in volume, I'm sure, had you not had that in-depth of a conversation with them and truly qualified
Yeah.
them.
But that's a trial by fire, though. I mean,
It is.
I think that every new agent wants to do that wrong the first time to prove to the broker, to prove to their team leader that they're the right one, and then they get burned, and then they realize, because I was so new and so eager to make success in this business when I first started. I didn't want to pre-qualify these people because I didn't want bad news.
That's right.
I didn't want bad news.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm like, no, we're going to go see some houses and we're going to sell.
That's right. You're going to buy this whether you want to or you can or whatever.
I'm not. If you can't afford it, I will cry.
That's
you know,
right.
like
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
But
I'm
it's
a great
funny how
problem
that
solver.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you brought up a good point there too, in saying that where you spend your time is important, because realtors often get that confused.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't know that it's confused. I think it's intentional. It's people like to hang out in certain places and with certain folks where they know that they should be, doing whatever they need to do over here.
Mm-hmm. I just don't want to.
They just don't want to.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, so if you take a small portion of your time, so Lorna talked about comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So get out of your comfort zone for a little bit of time. Do the things that you need to do that experienced, knowledgeable people are saying. This
Right.
is how you get from point A to point B. Get uncomfortable. Go do those things.
Yeah.
And look at the results. And if you don't like what the results were compared to the cost, at least you can measure it appropriately at that point.
Right.
Don't just take a small sampling of it.
Or
and
wing
say,
it.
That's right. And say, hey, that doesn't work. That isn't the way that it goes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So when did you think, oh, hell no, I'm not, this real estate is not for me.
More times than I want to tell you.
Right? And we're going to exclude today.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
I can tell you mine while you're thinking if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because there's when we were talking earlier, I kind of touched on this. My broker was a competing broker in a very I won't say malicious. That's not the right word, but let's just say aggressively competing broker.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah. So I'm working two jobs, and in between the two jobs, I'm coming in to meet somebody that I knew from one of those jobs to list their property. I walk in the door, and he's sitting at the table signing papers with the broker. So Shauna got there early. Different Sean. This is whenever I was in Georgia. So different Sean gets there early. Guy sits down with him, starts talking to him, signs the paper, all that kind of stuff. I said hi to everybody awkwardly, not knowing what to do. I'm just a few weeks in the business at this point.
Yeah.
And so I go back to my office and everything. They're finishing up. He walks back and does me the favor, while I'm on my 50-50 split, does me the favor of saying, don't worry, I'm going to let you help out with this listing. I'll let you run with it. All the listings belong to the broker, and I'll even pay you a 25% referral fee. So as time passed, I was like,
choke that mother out.
yeah. So I didn't know any better. I was young, and this is mid-late 90s, right? So I mean, real estate was a lot different then than it was, especially in relatively rural Georgia. It's a lot different then. And so I hit it off. Do pretty well in real estate and everything, and I'm able to get rid of at least one of the jobs. And then all the brokers started coming out and saying, hey, there's this must have been a thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the brokers took a coaching session, because I had like 3 or 4 brokers from different brokerages all say the same thing. There's more than one way to stay out of the rain. There's several umbrellas that can help you real estate. I mean, literally, not just one, but there was like 3 or 4 of them within a 2-week period after the awards came out and everything. 2-week period, they were like, you can come in out of the rain and everything. And the whole time, even with how that broker treated me, my loyalty just wouldn't let me get
Yeah.
beside that. I couldn't let go of that part of it, and which thankfully, in spite of myself, you know, and in spite of those decisions, still ended up being a great learning experience for me, because I knew at that point what I didn't want to be as a broker, just as much as I knew what I did want to be.
Right.
And the people in there, you know, it wasn't long before they were asking me questions about stuff. You know, a year into it, and they're asking me, you know, how'd you get from here to there and everything? Because I did 18 or 20 transactions in my first year with 2 full-time jobs, and then and you know, my best year was like 31 units, but that was probably about $2 million in volume.
No,
it wasn't much more. But and you know, so I struggled. But they were asking me questions, and I realized at that point I wanted to help. Yeah. And so, you know, the opportunity came up, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Well, you kind of inspired an answer in me. Yeah. What's made me want to quit real estate is, you know, when real estate's good, it's really good. And this is something that I teach on a daily basis is you know, staying steady no matter the highs and the lows. If you can stay right here throughout your real estate career, you're going to be successful.
Absolutely.
The people that do this have issues. And I'm not saying that those people aren't going to be successful. I'm just saying that, you know, those highs and lows are going to hit them harder.
Right.
And me being
more
the person
by the market, by the way.
100%.
Yeah.
And me being that, you know, personality-driven type of person that weighs a lot on my emotions. For the first several years of my career, and quite honestly, I have to still check myself sometimes. I'm a human being. I would get off of a high in selling a lot of cool stuff or whatever it might be, and because I was so focused on the result, I would stop prospecting, and I would stop doing that to the point where, you know, I'd kill it one year, let's just say the 37 million. And honestly, I think 2016 I did fall flat on my face. You know, I sold somewhere in the regards of like 6 or 7 million that next year.
Right.
Which is still, don't get me wrong, it's great. But I also had the help of another business partner, and I think we ended up selling 16 million the next year. But that's not the point. Is I was so focused on that result, and I was riding that high until as long as it was going to last, that I let the generating part of my business go away, and I was crushed. I'm telling you, I was absolutely at a low.
So let's talk about the word prospecting for just a second, okay? You know, sometimes when people hear prospecting, you know, depending on which of the first 4 personalities somebody is, prospecting means something completely different to them, okay? Whenever I say 4 personalities, I mean the 4 general ones, not the 16 and the disc and all that crap, all right? So it means something, the word means something completely different to all 4 of those groups.
Yeah.
And you know, right now, everyone is trying to convince agents that they don't have to prospect.
Yeah.
And whenever we say prospect, we don't mean, but I'm not saying just pick up the phone and cold call everybody, and you know, we're not trying to smile and dial. That's not some people's style, right?
That was like when I first got into real estate and heard prospecting, it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I mean,
most people it does.
No joke. I mean, I got out of, the reason I didn't say this, I got out of the finance world because I was cold calling over 400 people a day to sign up for a mutual fund conference.
Wow.
And I hated my life. I just hated it. And that was prospecting.
Right.
I remember going into my boss's office and going, listen, I called 437 people today. I don't really have anything for you. He goes, you realize that I'm paying you to put butts in those seats and you're not doing it.
Right.
And that was a real gut check for me in saying that, like, you know, this is prospecting and I'm going into real estate now and I got a prospect over here. So, but going to your point, yeah, I mean, it means something different to everybody.
Absolutely.
And prospecting, what I do prospecting versus another agent or a different broker could be completely different. And there's no one way. That's why I love it.
Absolutely. And agents shouldn't be coached that there's one way.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you know, somebody's got to take a sincere look at who they are and what works for them and say, you know, because prospecting might be a meetup group. Prospecting might be, Facebook. Prospecting there's a ton of different ways, and so there's, it all depends on where you're at, what your personality is, and where you're at.
Right.
So do you have to have right now business? You were in a right now situation. I wasn't in a right now situation because, fortunate or not, I had a couple of other jobs to pay the bills. Right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't in a right now situation. So I was able to do some of the things I needed to do. But one of the things that the broker did is gave me a phone book and said, "Oh yeah, you need to call through the phone book." And I started calling and made it a page, maybe, if that, over a 2, 3, 4 week period, scribbling everything out. And I was like, man, this is not for me. And so I got a funny story though, saying with that, and I'm gonna throw a holler out to somebody really quick because hopefully this will help. So right after I purchased the company, I said, hey everybody, the sky's the limit. Dinner's on me. Come in Wednesday night. So everybody comes in. There's Little Caesars there, right? So there wasn't Little Caesars because there wasn't even Little Caesars there, but there was pizza there, right?
No more than 2 slices.
Yeah, more than 2 slices. No more than 2 slices. And pizza's for closers. And they all show up, and I had phone books for all of them. And so this is the probably right around 2099, 2000, something like that. And I said, we're all going to call 10 people tonight and talk to them about real estate. 30 people, 28, 30 people in the room, something like that. One lady, her name's Lynn, does everything she can do to hide from me the whole night, the entire night. And so I did what any good broker would do. I locked the back door and everybody had to go out the front door to leave, right? So everybody's leaving. As they're all leaving, I'm saying bye, and everybody kind of came to the same conclusion. It wasn't as bad as what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And some people got business, some people didn't get business, some people lied about their numbers, all that. You know how all that goes, right?
Yeah.
So Lynn comes to the door and she's crying, and Lynn is somebody that worked her ass off her entire life.
Yeah.
And she wanted real estate to work. And she said, Matt, I can't do this. And I said, well, pull yourself together. We'll figure something out. Come on in, a couple days or whatever. And so 2, 3 days later, we come in, we sit down. I said, so what do you like to do, Lynn? And she said, eat. And I said, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to call people in the morning, see if they can go to lunch. You don't have to pay for lunch for them. Yeah. Call and see if they can go to lunch and say, oh, by the way, if I plan on writing this off, my broker said I had to whatever. So, within 6 months, Lynn, let me tell you the other funny part of this story. So a week later, 2 weeks later, I said, so Lynn, how's it going or whatever and everything? And she was calling people at 5:30 in the morning. And the reason why is because she was a bus driver.
Okay.
And so she's calling. I'm like, Lynn, you're not saying Century 21, are you?
Yeah, right.
But she's calling them, seeing if they want to go to lunch.
Right.
Her best year was 148 units.
Oh, my God.
148 units. She was sitting at lunch one day with a friend of hers and a developer sitting across from them. She said, hey, this is Marlon. Marlon, this is Lynn. They hit up a conversation. This is in 2003, 2004. This guy's buying subdivisions, developing, and she's turning over. She got to the point where she put the flyer things in the yard, and she put the price and everything, the floor plan, the disclosures, everything on it because she was so busy. She didn't want the buyers calling her. When they called, she would ask them, do you have all the information? They'd say yes, and she'd say, do you want to write an offer? And if they said no, she'd say, well, you need to find an agent. They can help you look around. And literally, that was the end of the conversation for her.
Yeah.
She was that busy at that point.
Right.
Prospecting the way that worked for her.
Right.
If I wouldn't have sat down with her,
Yeah.
she's a determined person. She would have made it. She would have made it in real estate, but it would have been a long, hard road for her. But so thankfully, we were able to have that call night, right?
Well, that's nice, though, because, it's like, well, people lean on what you're good at.
Yep.
I've always been good at sports and stuff like that. And I'll tell you, what got my real estate career off the ground was sports.
Yeah.
Just being a part of different clubs and adult men's leagues and golf, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't have to be difficult. You can still really, really enjoy what you're doing.
Right.
That's why I love real estate is...
It allows you to be awesome and help people out and make money all at the same time.
Yeah, you can mold it to whatever you want it to be, man.
Yep, I agree. All right, so what else here? Was there anything we needed to hit on?
I think we nailed it for today. I mean, we wanted to kind of scratch the surface with who Matt and I are, and I think we may have done that. We'll probably expand a little bit more based on some questions that you guys posed to us. But it's nice for you guys to understand, who we are as people, and we're not just up here blabbing about stuff, and that, we actually do have a background and a family and things like that, and there's a reason why we do what we do and why we love this stuff.
Right, and why we congregate with people who want to be part of this world.
Yeah.
got one lady that sold a house. She sold both sides of it, and it was enough for her to pay for her daughter to go to Brown University for 4 years.
Incredible. Yeah.
And Nancy is just an incredible, helpful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
And so real estate can do that for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. Is we want the buyer and the seller won in that situation. Nancy won in that situation. Her daughter won. Brown University won. Everybody won because we were able to help somebody at a level that we wanted to help them out at. I think that's incredible.
If you're thinking about getting into real estate, you're not in real estate, come talk to us. We're happy to talk. I mean, today on my Instagram page, I posted something about, I get questions all the time on, what makes somebody successful in real estate? And that is such a loaded question.
Oh, yeah.
But first and foremost, you have to want it.
Yep.
If you don't want it, somebody else is going to want it. So if you want something in life bad enough, you'll make it happen. You can align yourself with the right people,
right?
And you're going to learn along the way. But you can't teach heart. If you have heart, I'll hire you right now.
Right.
But if you don't, this is a tough business to break into.
And it's not for you.
No.
Yeah, it's not for you. If you don't want to contribute at that high of a level by putting your all into it, I mean that's not
Yeah.
Customer deserves somebody that's all in.
Right.
So.
That's what makes it sweet, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely, as always. Awesome.
And we have some awesome guests coming up, so it won't be just the two of us for too long here. But we got some badass guests coming up. We don't want to spoil that because we kind of want to surprise you once you hit the second one.
Yeah, one of the top commercial agents in the country agreed to come on. I think she agreed to come on. We'll see, but she's one of the top agents, and she was like number 2 or number 3 in the country in the franchise.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she is. She's incredible. So we'll get her on here, and so we've got guests lined up and everything, but we wanted to come to you today like this.
And we have some out of real estate guests, which you're really going to like. So a lot of we're going to try to tie everything back into real estate in this podcast for obvious reasons, being the Brokers Open podcast. But we're going to bring in entrepreneurs, business people, military people. We got some great lineups coming up that aren't just real estate, but as long as we can give you something, like one golden nugget out of this hour each time, that's the goal. And I know that whoever we bring on, you're going to get something.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. There's been so much great stuff just sitting here with the guest, and we know the guest.
Yeah.
But just sitting here, something always comes out that's that nugget. It's just like a great training class, like when we talked about education a little while ago. You get that great training class, and you sit down, and you just happen to get that one piece, and you're like, man, this 3 hours was worth it.
Totally.
If it was 3 hours worth of stuff that you didn't know, you're in the wrong damn class.
Right.
It needs to be something that's adding to what you're doing from a real estate perspective, not taking away. So
totally. Well, if you want to be on the podcast, hit us up. If you have a realtor friend that's killing it, if you have an entrepreneur friend, family member, business leader, military person, hit us up, because
love to have them on here.
We just want to make this thing better for everybody.
Yeah, we got a couple of sports stars heading this way too, so we gotta get to where they're freed up, able to do it. So there's a bunch of good stuff. People performing at a high level. Yep. I don't think Tim Ferriss has got the market cornered on high level people being picked apart on a podcast, right?
Dude, Tim Ferriss is a legend. I love Tim Ferriss. I mean, that guy is so cool. I mean, he's so dynamic. The guy's like jack of all trades.
Yeah, he is.
He speaks like seven languages or something.
Dances and can throw a karate champion off of a ring. I mean, he can do
He's
all of it, man. He is.
Well, should we end with some music?
Oh, I wonder which song we'd listen to. You got any ideas what we could listen to?
I don't know.
Oh, there it is.
Peace out, peeps. Shout out Post Malone. All right, Paul Media, we're out.